Tony, congratulations for not having just one project, but two projects with Disney Junior here.
Oh, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell us, how did these two projects landed on your lap? Was it like a roundabout way, or they directly like went after you for this?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. It actually came about because of my prior relationship with the Disney Animation Music TV music department. I was the composer on a series for them called Elena of Avalor, and we did 3 seasons together, which ended last summer. And the relationship was very good, and I know Jay Stutler in that music department had been looking for the next project to put me up for, introduce me on, and it just so happened that these 2 movies were the right fit, and the next thing that they were able to pass my name along to, and that's how it came about.
Well, that's fortunate. They got you sort of like the a BOGO price of get one and get the other for free here. But
it was a package.
Yeah. So let's talk about your first movie that's coming out pretty soon, Mickey's Tale of the Two Witches. How did you want to approach this film for the Disney Junior film?
Yeah, well, it's coming out. It's coming out today, actually, in Disney Junior. It'll be out on Disney Plus tomorrow. We wanted to have, when I first spoke to the producers and the director, the idea was a fun family holiday movie, something that could be a classic. And how that translated to the music side of things. One thing they mentioned early on was, they had 2 requests, to tell it like a cinematic experience, give it, what would feel like a movie kind of cinematic score, which meant, orchestral, a little larger, a little bit could be epic, as needed, and a lot of fun. And the second thing was to bring some Halloween element to it. So aside from what notes that means and what melodies that means, we decided that some instruments were key. Theremin. Theremin is very much these Halloween spooky vibe, which we feature in the score. We feature some harpsichord. We feature some retro 60s organ, which is kind of the same sound as the Haunted Mansion music ride. So just kind of brought that in and used it as some influence in the sort of style to keep this thing fun and, a good fun family experience for everyone to enjoy.
How many scores did you have to come up with for this project?
Well, for this, let's see, for the Mickey Tale of Two Wishes, the film, I want to say it's roughly 40-something minutes-ish. And, the style of the movie, it's a lot of music. It's mostly music. There are songs. There's 3 or 4 songs that are featured in it as well by another songwriting team who produces those. And I do all the score in between. I want to say it was a roughly 30 to 32 minutes of score. So that adds up to, it's all little starts and stops. So however many cues, we call those cues when you start and you end a piece of music. I'm going to say probably 24 to 30 cues. It was a good amount.
Will kids be dancing to your scores here?
I think so. I think it's definitely going to be a classic. It should be a lot of fun. I've got my family queued up to watch it. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to enjoy.
Most definitely. I'll have to queue that one up tonight to watch, check out this film.
Mm-hmm.
Now you also have the other one, Mickey and Minnie Wish Upon a Christmas. Did you have to go with a different approach for something like that, since that's a Christmas movie that's coming out later?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thread that they wanted to keep was, again, this kind of cinematic film, kind of treat it like a movie, as opposed to an episodic TV approach. And so with the Christmas sound, there's lots of so many things to pull from as far as what sort of instruments will take Christmas on top of like what's the melody say, and all those kind of choices. I feature a small choir, a handful of voices in the score that definitely feel of the right tone for this. Bells, celeste, like little belly sounds, and full orchestra featured. For sure, but it definitely feels very holiday and very Christmas.
are we going to have some addictive scores? Because I find Christmas songs or Christmas scores to be entirely addicting. I don't
Yeah,
know. Is this going to get in my head and I'm going to be humming to it
I
when I'm
hope
driving?
so. We hope so. We hope so. You know, it's there to support the story, but we always hope that the music resonates with people and you enjoy it. You know, again, there are some songs. We also had the benefit and had a lot of fun with. There's a lot of public domain Christmas carols, right? Like that means what that means is, you know, you can quote a Christmas a song and it's okay to do. And so there were some moments where we actually used some like I would quote a melody from whatever it was, and it would punctuate either like humor or an emotional moment, and it felt very familiar, obviously because you know the tune, right? And it was a lot of fun for me to kind of get to arrange that and weave that into my score for that film.
When you're quoting another song or melody into your music, does that
Mhm.
make it easier or does it make it harder to adapt?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the situation. Like if it's something that I wouldn't have thought about doing and it's a request that comes my way, hey, can you put that in there? Then I kind of have to rethink my baseline approach to that music, right? But if it's something where we have like a couple of options, like, hey, here's three, you know, Christmas tunes that are public domain that you could use, see which one you want to work with. Then I can kind of choose and work into what I think works best in the scene. And a lot of times it's very helpful because part for me when I write music, you know, and this is something that I used to not do when I got started out. I always try to write the skeleton or the structure of what I want to say with that piece of music. What that means is I want to know what my melody is and what my harmony is before I start putting it together. Otherwise I get lost. I can like write myself out of the scene and not know what I'm doing. So if I have this like, you know, this melody to choose from already, it's kind of already solved a little bit of that puzzle for me. So in a way it's helpful to work that way.
So on this project, they already gave you the melody to choose from, like they gave you a list.
No, well, when we talked, what we do is we have a spotting session early on. So that means we all talk about where the music goes and what kind of music it is. In that meeting, we would talk about scenes, what we're going to do. And some of these scenes where I ended up quoting stuff, we talked about ahead of time. And we talked about what that song was and what we should use and all that. And I don't want to tell you which one because I don't remember and I don't want to say the wrong one in case it's not public domain, but we only use public domain stuff, I can guarantee.
Well, I know you've done so many movies and TV shows throughout your entire career here. So does all of this actually come easy for you
Never.
because it's never.
It's never easy. No, you know, it's funny and it's never easy. It's always a process, just like with anything creative. I mean, it's not like I mean, I don't consider myself prolific. I just, you know, I enjoy what I do and I take it very seriously. And you know, it's sometimes it may be harder than it needs to be. And I just make it harder on myself because I want it to be great. But it's always, there's always you have to start. There's always the start. And that's the hardest part. Like, until I put music in front of like whoever hires me, the producer, the director, I don't know what they're going to think. Once I know what they think, whether that's good or bad, it always moves things along. So, you know, it's always a bit of a process, but I love it.
When you compose the music, do you have to wait for the director to basically somehow give you some kind of cut to watch first, or do you basically come up with the melody first?
Another great question. It depends on what I'm working on in the format and how they want to work. For these projects, I think they didn't have the full movie ready for me when we started talking and when we, you know, started, you know, getting creative ideas going, but they had a scene or two. And what I asked is if I could write some music to that scene just to kind of get ahead of things, because the other thing that, you know, you didn't mention is schedule. So usually when we get going, we have a deadline, and depending on how late we start close to that deadline, it makes everything a little bit more stressful. So for me, I love to get some musical language between me and the director going early on from whatever I write, so I can get feedback, and we can start to galvanize throughout the process.
Of course, working with Mickey and friends, that makes your job easier, right?
Absolutely, they're the best.
Well, let's talk more about you, Tony. When did you get that creative bug to become a composer?
I got, that's a great question. I started music very early on in my life. I just fell in love with the guitar as a young kid, and started playing when I was 9, and started playing in bands in middle school. And I knew music was like, growing up, I mean, music was always a constant for me and something I definitely wanted to pursue. I didn't really think about being a composer until I was at music school. I ended up going to music school to what I thought at the time was to be a studio musician and just be the best, virtuosic player I could be on my instrument, to therefore go and record. And at college, I went to Berklee College of Music. They have a amazing film scoring program. And, as a general ed, you have to take various classes no matter what you do when you go there. And it was an options class, and I took it, like an intro to film music. And in that class, vividly remember, we studied the music to a movie that Jerry Goldsmith scored called The Omen from the 70s. It's very, it's The Omen. And I remember thinking, I was just blown away by the music, and I was just blown away by the whole concept and the orchestra. I'd also at the same time started to discover and learn a lot about composition for orchestra, and we really fell in love with strings. And it all just kind of galvanized for me at that point. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a couple more classes. And then I started to enjoy those. And I took some more things where you got to compose for scenes and write for some string players. And I was just hooked. Like at that point, I knew I wanted to continue my career and my education in that avenue and see where I could go with it.
Now, what's amazing is that your journey eventually led to Hans Zimmer Media Ventures. Was that an easy path to get to? I can't imagine that was easy.
It was not easy, but I will say it was the most random path. And it's been the most fortunate path for my story. How that came about was I had lived with a roommate. A roommate and I had lived in an apartment in Venice, California. And we had just moved into this 3-bedroom apartment, and we soon learned, like a month in, we needed a third roommate because we couldn't afford it. I was like 2 years out of college and very young, and this person came and answered the ad to move in, and we liked them, and we invited them to move in. They moved in. It turns out their best friend was a young and up and coming composer working at Hans Zimmer's Media Ventures, and his name was Harry Gregson Williams, who is a very well-known film composer nowadays and legendary at this point. So Harry was young and up and coming at that point. We obviously became friends because we had a roommate in common. My roommate was his best friend, and that was how things happened. I ended up giving him a cassette. Hi, I'm a little young composer. I'd love to work someday. Do you know anybody that would want to listen to this? And he passed my cassette on to a division of Media Ventures, which was called Siberia, which was a specific division dedicated to writing music for commercials. So somebody called me from there one day and like, hey, we're doing a commercial for Blockbuster Video. Do you want to send a demo in and write a demo for this? And if they choose your demo, you're hired. And that's how it happened. It was very random. It was very just kind of fell out of nowhere, because to that point, I will tell you, I had been out of college for about 3 years. I didn't know how to get into this business. I was still composing at night and trying to write music for student films and trying to figure out my break. And boom, that just happened. And it was, and obviously, I got the job, and I had to kind of, keep it moving, but it was very random how it came about. It's pretty crazy.
I'm curious, do you still own cassettes in your house? I think I could still find some in my household here.
Oh, I definitely do. I think I might. Yeah, I definitely do. Oh yeah, this is a cassette right here. I do. These are like old cassettes of old music and stuff, but I've got a handful, not a ton.
That is terrific. What was the best lesson you learned while working there?
Well, I learned It's good. That's a good question. I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about myself when I started working there because, as I'd mentioned, it was like my first real opportunity. So, translation, I was green. I didn't have experience. I didn't know what much more than what I thought was good music and how to write music. I didn't have much interaction between producers and other composers listening to my music. So, I was there for a year doing music for commercials before that stint ended, and I ended up being referred to another commercial music house where I spent 2 more years composing for commercials and ads. And, I will say that year was a big learning curve about how to be a better composer, how to service the film, how to become professional. I was like 24, 25 at the time and very, just very green and not ready for the dedication and the perseverance that was to come to succeed in this business.
Excellent. And one more thing, you won an Emmy, primetime Emmy for Hatfield and McCoy's. What was that like for you? Was that your ultimate achievement, or you set your goals higher?
Oh, thank you. Well, just to be clear, I was nominated for an Emmy. I wish I won the Emmy, but that was amazing. That was like, and here's what made it more amazing. So at that point in my career, I had been doing this probably for about 12 to 14 years professionally. And my path early on was that after doing the commercials, my path was writing music as an additional composer or an additional arranger for other composers because I didn't know any producers who would call me directly. And so I spent so many years doing that I got to a place where I wasn't sure I wasn't sure whether I was successful or not, or what I did was good, or did people like it. And the Hatfields McCoys came about because I had been working for a great composer, a great person, and John Debney. And John and I, he asked if I wanted to co-write that with him, which I did. And so it was my first job with my name on it, and meeting the producers and being in front of in the meetings. And we got nominated for an Emmy. And I was very proud. And I really knew that I put everything I could into it, and that it was like a real validation. Wow, okay, maybe I am onto something here. And maybe, all these years spent doing this is worth it. And, I need to keep going. So yeah, it was a really, really proud moment.
Well, that day will actually come for you, most certainly. Well,
Thank you.
well, Tony, one more thing before I let you go, because I'm always curious when I talk to composers. I really want to know is how many instruments you actually know how to play, because I know you play guitar because that's what you mentioned.
Do. Yes.
But yes. I know composers, they play a half a dozen instruments. What are yours?
Well, I can play guitars. I play several guitars, electric, acoustic, small, big. Piano, I get along on because I have to write mostly on the piano. Bass, which is kind of like guitar, so I don't know if that's really worth touting, but I do play bass. And I can drum a little bit. My rhythm might be a little sloppy, but I can definitely play in the drum kit. I can play a bad rock and roll beat. Or some sort of conga grooves, but that's about it. I don't play anything else. I don't play any other string instruments or woodwind instruments, but I'm happy to hire other people to do that for me because they're way better.
Most excellent. Well, Tony, hey, thank you for carrying this conversation with us about your 2 new projects for Disney Junior and getting to know a little bit more about yourself. And you know what? I could see that Emmy win down the road for you.
Oh, thanks, Gig. I really appreciate it. It's been a great time talking with you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Next time.
Okay, take care.